Thank you. You mind if I take a picture real quick? Oh, yeah. You can take that off.
In the early hours of June 4th, 2026, a woman walked up to the wrong apartment in Lexington, South Carolina, picked up a stranger's DoorDash order, and then tried to follow the resident inside. At first, it looked like a simple mistake, but that is not what made the footage important. But over the next several minutes, she was seen wandering through the complex, going through packages, and telling one of the residents something that would later stand out for a very different reason. She said she didn't know what she was doing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just deliver it out?
Yep.
That woman was 39-year-old Elena Moore, and 1 week later, she would be reported missing. Elena was from the Lexington area and was described by friends as outgoing, hardworking, and well-known in the community. But in the days before she disappeared, something seemed to be wrong. On the evening of June 11th, Elena checked into a Planet Fitness on Whiteford Way. She was last seen leaving the gym at around 6:40 p.m. For a while, that appeared to be the final confirmed sighting. But then, investigators found another piece of surveillance. At around 9:17 that night, Elena was seen walking through a Publix parking lot on Old Cherokee Road wearing an olive green hoodie and black athletic pants. According to reports, she appeared to be heading in the direction of Old Cherokee Road. After that, she disappeared. The next day, June 12th, she was reported missing. At this point, the search expanded. The ring footage from a week earlier began circulating publicly, and it quickly became one of the most disturbing parts of the case. You see, it did not just show Elena at the wrong apartment. It appeared to show her confused, disoriented, and wandering alone in the middle of the night, days before she vanished. Then, around a week after she was reported missing, investigators found a body in a wooded area near Old Cherokee Road and North Lake Drive, not far from where she had last been seen on surveillance. The clothing matched Elena's description. Soon after, the Lexington County coroner confirmed the body was hers. As of the latest reporting, the exact cause of Elena Moore's death has not been publicly released, and that is what leaves the case in such a difficult place. Was Elena suffering from some kind of mental health or medical crisis in the days before she died, or did something happen to her after she was last seen walking alone that night? Friends have publicly pushed back against the idea that this was simply a breakdown, while investigators have remained careful about what they've shared. So for now, the final days of Elena Moore's life are still only visible in fragments. A ring camera at the wrong apartment, a parking lot surveillance clip late at night, and a wooded area just a short distance away where the search came to an end. And until more is released, the most important part of the story is still missing.
That's right. All right, one at a time.
I'm gonna grab him. I told him to come on. Okay, step on that. How are you, sir? How are you? Oh, perfect. Perfect. We'll just make sure you guys got liquor in the back, right?
Do you have weed on you? Where is it? Okay, you just leave it there for now. No weapons on you? You guys were smoking, right? Yeah.
At first, this body cam footage does not look like the start of a murder case. It shows 3 Chicago police officers around a gray Honda CR-V during what appears to be a normal traffic stop. There are voices, commands, movement around the vehicle, and for a brief moment, nothing about the scene clearly suggests how quickly it is about to change. On the night of August 7, 2021, officers Ella French, Carlos Yanez Jr., and Joshua Blas pulled over that Honda near 63rd and Bell Avenue in Chicago's West Englewood neighborhood. The reason for the stop was minor. The vehicle had an expired license plate. But as the officers moved around the SUV, the stop began shifting into something else. Officer French was on the driver's side, while Yanez and Blas dealt with the passengers. During the stop, officers noticed other issues inside the vehicle, including an open alcohol container, and began ordering the occupants out. One of those passengers was Amante Morgan. At first, the problem appeared to be non-compliance. Morgan was not following commands, and officers were trying to get control of him near the passenger side. At almost the same time, the driver, Eric Morgan, broke away from Officer French and ran. Officer Blas moved after him, which left French and Yanez still dealing with Amante near the SUV. From the outside, it looked like two separate problems were unfolding at once, one man running from the stop and another resisting beside the vehicle. Then the body cam captured the moment that changed the meaning of everything before it.
No weapons on you? You guys were smoking, right? Yeah, I saw that. And you guys have open liquor in the car. Are you from here? Wait, I'm gonna have you step out. Step out, you're gonna turn around and put your hands up, okay? That way?
You got open alcohol in the car.
During the struggle, Amante Morgan pulled out a concealed .22 caliber Glock pistol and opened fire at close range. Officer French was shot once in the head, and Officer Yanez was hit multiple times in the head, face, neck, and shoulder. Hearing the gunfire, Officer Blas turned back toward the traffic stop and returned to a scene that had changed in seconds. Blas returned fire, striking Morgan and ending the immediate threat. Officer French was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, she didn't survive. At the time, she was 29 years old. Officer Yanez survived after extensive treatment and rehabilitation, but he was left with permanent injuries, including the loss of one eye and partial blindness in the other. Morgan was also wounded and taken into custody. In the years that followed, the case moved through the courts. In March 2024, Amante Morgan was convicted of first-degree murder, attempted murder of a peace officer, and multiple firearm offenses. Later that year, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole, along with additional consecutive decades for the attempted murders. The body cam footage also became part of a separate review by Chicago's Civilian Office of Police Accountability. That review focused on Officer Blas's return fire because French and Yanez had already been shot before they could fully respond.
It's not easy when there is evidence hidden. It was impossible for the jury to give my son a fair trial. I just learned days before this trial that Ella was shot in the back of the head. 2 years ago, I told his defense she was shot in the back of the head. I was told I was delusional, that I was wrong. Well, turns out I was right. She was shot in the back of the head. And in the body-worn camera, it is impossible for Ella to have hit by the bullets from the vehicle that my son was in while he was being attacked by Carlos Yanez. It was impossible for him to be shot, given the positions of her and my son and Yanez. You guys, they serve somebody guilty that's actually innocent. And I am hurting right now, but I believe and I have full faith that my son will receive justice one day.
COPA concluded that Blas's use of deadly force was justified because Morgan was still an immediate threat when Blas fired. The case was closed in 2023, but the body cam footage and related materials were not released publicly until June 2026, after court restrictions from the criminal cases were lifted.
He just comes flying up the side, just barely missed us. He's in the ditch. That car up back there.
It's smoking. It's smoking. People down there.
Oh, it's kids or something.
What? Oh my God. Should we help? Oh, there's a police officer. No, we're not yet.
On the morning of May 29, 2026, drivers on Interstate 95 in Stafford County, Virginia, came across a scene that looked more like the aftermath of a pileup than a routine traffic backup. In the footage, the crash itself is already over. What we are seeing is the escape. Passengers climbing out, first responders moving people away from the bus, and smoke still rising from the wreckage. But what the video does not show is what happened moments earlier, when that same bus tore through a line of slowed traffic in an overnight work zone. By the time the bus came to rest off southbound I-95, it had already torn through a line of slowed traffic in an overnight work zone, hit multiple vehicles, and triggered a chain reaction crash that killed 5 people.
I wonder if their brakes went out or something. I bet the brakes went out.
There's still people in there.
The bus was operated by E&P Travel, a small charter company based in North Carolina, and was headed from New York City to Charlotte. It was carrying a driver and a group of passengers on a long overnight trip down the East Coast when, at around 2:35 a.m., it approached mile marker 146 near the Quantico area. Ahead of it, traffic had already slowed for road work. That was where the bus should have started slowing down, but according to investigators, it never did. The National Transportation Safety Board later said the bus failed to slow for the traffic queue and continued forward through the backed-up work zone at speed. It first struck a Chevrolet Suburban, pushing it into an Acura SUV ahead. The Acura caught fire, and the bus continued into more vehicles before finally leaving the roadway and stopping in a ditch. In total, investigators say it traveled roughly 0.44 miles through the traffic queue before it came to rest. Nearly half a mile is what makes the crash harder to understand, because this was not just one sudden impact. The bus kept moving through the backed-up traffic before it finally stopped. Inside the passenger vehicles ahead of it, the damage was catastrophic. 5 people were killed, including a family of 4 from Massachusetts who were traveling in the Acura, and a 25-year-old woman who had been driving the Suburban. Around 44 other people were taken to hospitals, including bus passengers and occupants of other vehicles involved in the crash. The bus driver survived and was also injured. By the time that cell phone video was recorded, the deadliest part of the crash had already happened. Virginia State Police later charged the driver, 48-year-old Jing Shengdong, with 5 counts of involuntary manslaughter and 1 count of reckless driving. Investigators are still looking at the full picture, including the driver's actions, the company's safety record, and the conditions in the work zone that night. For the passengers climbing out of that bus, the worst part of the crash was already behind them. For the people in the vehicles ahead, there was no chance to get away. By sunrise, what had started as a routine overnight trip down I-95 had become one of Virginia's deadliest highway crashes of the year.
Cassandra, what is that? Holy moly! Oh, holy! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, Cassandra! Oh my gosh! It was a plane.
On the night of June 16, 2026, drivers on Loop 20 in Laredo, Texas, suddenly saw something that should never be over a city highway. A business jet was coming down just a few miles from the airport, but what made this crash harder to understand was not only where it happened, it was how close the crew had come to reaching the runway. By the time the jet came down onto Loop 20, the flight had already been diverted from its original route to Austin. The crew had already reported serious problems, and people on the ground had already seen it circling over South Laredo in the dark. So the question was not just why it crashed, but why it fell short when the runway was already so close. You see, the aircraft was a NetJets-operated Cessna Citation Latitude carrying 6 people from San Jose del Cabo, Mexico to Austin, Texas. At first, it was supposed to be a normal flight back to Austin, but somewhere along the way, the crew began dealing with an emergency, serious enough to divert to Laredo International Airport instead. Early reports said the pilots had reported mechanical trouble, low fuel, and a power outage while trying to get the aircraft safely onto the ground. On its own, that might not seem unusual. In an emergency, emergency, a crew may circle while troubleshooting, being guided by air traffic control or trying to line up for another approach. But nearly 20 minutes later, the jet was still in the air. A short time after that flash, the crew was still trying to reach Laredo International Airport, but they never made it. Investigators say the jet was only about 2.5 miles short of the airport when it came down on northbound Loop 20. For the people inside, the crash was catastrophic, but not everyone was trapped beyond help. In the middle of that chaos, 5 of the 6 people on board were pulled out alive, including both pilots and 3 passengers. Unfortunately, 1 passenger did not survive. He was later identified as 50-year-old Josh Baer, the founder of Capital Factory and one of the best-known figures in Austin's startup community. The other survivors were taken to the hospital in stable condition, and despite the aircraft crashing directly onto a public roadway, no one on the ground was killed. The National Transportation Safety Board is now trying to reconstruct those final minutes using the wreckage, flight data recorder, cockpit voice recorder, and crew interviews. As of now, no final cause has been released. Early reports pointed to mechanical problems, but investigators are still working to determine what failed, how the reported low fuel and power issues fit into the emergency, and why the aircraft was unable to complete the landing after getting so close. For people in Laredo, the crash lasted only a few moments, but the scene left behind was hard to make sense of. The man in this Ring camera footage had already been seen moving through a North Austin neighborhood, shirtless, bleeding, and trying to get into homes. At first, it was not clear whether police were responding to a burglary, a medical emergency, or both, but the calls kept coming in. On June 6, 2026, callers in the Woodrow Avenue area reported a man acting strangely. People reported that he was banging on doors and was bleeding and appearing dazed. The Ring camera footage you saw before happened on the same day. Investigators would connect him to that incident through the footage, witness descriptions, and blood evidence found at the scene, but by the time officers found him, he had moved a few blocks away. At around 6:35 p.m., Austin police officers arrived on the 7600 block of Grover Avenue and found the man lying in a front yard. He was later identified as 32-year-old Josh Ryan Trumbull. He had several cuts on his body, and he was still bleeding. Officers appeared to understand that this was not only a possible burglary call, it was also a situation involving someone who seemed injured, confused, and possibly in the middle of a medical or psychological crisis. For a brief moment, the encounter seemed to be moving in the safest direction available. Officers had found him, he was on the ground, and medical help had been requested. The next step was to just get him into handcuffs, but almost immediately something was wrong.
Relax. Kicking. Stop.
You gotta roll him over.
He's got cuts on his arms. Should be unlocked. Hobble should be on that floorboard. Stop moving.
Hey, slow it up. Slow your nose. Hey. No pulse. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Help him pull it.
Get him out of the way. Move him. One. Roll.
Hey, go ahead and get in here, because I don't think I've cracked you through.
Within seconds, Josh became unresponsive. Officers rolled him onto his side, checked for a pulse, and began CPR while asking Austin Travis County EMS to hurry to the scene. Although firefighters and medics arrived and took over life-saving efforts, but after roughly 38 minutes of resuscitation attempts, Josh Ryan Trumbull was pronounced dead at 7:18 p.m. In the days that followed, Austin police released the Ring footage, body camera video, 911 calls, and police radio traffic. 7 officers were placed on administrative leave while the incident was reviewed, which is standard in a case involving an in-custody death. Police Chief Lisa Davis said the taser use appeared appropriate based on the resistance officers encountered, but the department also said the case would still be examined for any lessons learned.
Emergency medical services personnel continued attempts to save his life for 38 minutes. At 7:18 p.m., despite those measures, Mr. Trumbull was pronounced deceased at the scene. I think this was a situation where officers felt that getting him in custody as quickly as possible was to their benefit. Were they right in the tasing? I believe that tasing was. Anytime that someone loses their life, we have to look at the circumstances behind that and what happened. Those things are to learn, and if we can do that, we'll do that. But I think there's absolutely some things that we can take from this.
As of the latest available information, the Travis County Medical Examiner has not released a final cause of death and no charges have been filed. What makes this case difficult is that the footage shows several things happening at once. Officers were responding to reports of a man forcing his way into homes, but when they found him, they were also dealing with someone who appeared injured, disoriented, and possibly in serious distress. But what it does not explain is why Josh Trumbull became unresponsive almost immediately afterward. Until the medical examiner releases more information, that remains the unanswered part of the case. I mean, at least we will know what went wrong. If you stayed till here, thank you so much. If you have any suggestions or a case you want me to cover next, just drop it in the comments.